started the Key campaign by getting a notion or this idea from the National Ark when we did that. Went to Washington, D.C. and did that. And so we came home and said, you know, we could do something like that. And we thought it was a great idea to get to those legislators. Very, very important and a very, very practical way to really get our stories across. And then have a good time together. There's a lot of reunions that happen, and there's a lot of support, family to family, and it's still an expensive process to plan for that round-trip air ticket, which again increases each year, and the hotel costs and food. But it seems that every family I talk to afterwards always says it was more than worth it. Has to learn about how we do these meetings and how we organize ourselves, of course, trying to have people see their own legislators. And that isn't always 100%, but always trying to do that as much as possible. And talking about the courtesy, the legislators' time is very valuable, and we have to respect that, be on time for our appointments. And we learn more about that. The legislator staffers are very good to meet with. It isn't always a legislator himself or herself. So those things of having, a firm idea of why we're going and what we need and what we think are priorities. Is just tell me about your experience. And the more they just tell it in their own words and really tell their stories, the more effective it is. And it's been very effective.
Now we've got our 20th Key campaign, and mostly it was, as always, a shortage of resources and people waiting in long wait lists, and the frustration that we had as families. And was fortunate enough to have a lot of really good mentoring by other parents and Mary Jane here at the Ark, and I just became part of the team and became very involved in advocacy and how to make things happen. And we had a very effective group. We had a very cohesive group, and that went along for quite some time. And then we reorganized and we became officially the Key Coalition of Alaska. And I was fortunate enough to be the first president of Key Coalition of Alaska. And we just continued then to have actually go to a board system where we had people from all around the state that would sit on the board for local chapters. And we continue to have ongoing struggles looking at, well, what's the issue this year? And the issue, of course, for this year are rate freezes and the inability to find and keep staff, and how that impacts families and individuals with disabilities, and the agency's ability to provide the kinds of best service that they want to provide. So that stuff that we'll be having meetings over the summer in all of our chapters to be prepared for the next legislative season, so that we'll walk away with the kinds of improvements in the system that we need to happen. And see a whole room full of hundreds of people who intrinsically get what your life is and what your issues are, and that those are the same issues that are very important to them and need. So it keeps you young on some regard, because it doesn't matter if you're 65 or 49 or 33, you still have to, you still have to get up every day and do it. And so this kind of keeps you in the loop. And I encourage all families and professionals to become involved, because once you've had a taste of being successful, and that's really what it is. I mean, advocacy is about change and about improving the system, and if we're involved, then we are going to be successful, because we don't stop. We just continue to keep going and tweaking the system, because it's never where you want it to be, ever. So that's my experience with Key, and I suppose I'm hoping I'll be 80 and still carrying my Key Coalition sign on the corner of our local advocacy staff.
An advocacy organization composed of a diversity of people that share a vision that community is for everyone, and that we have a dream one day there'll be a moment in time, when community is open and accessible to everyone on an equal basis. People that believe that individuals and families who experience disabilities have a right to critical community supports. So when we do Key Campaign in Juneau, there's not at least a family, and usually it's more than that, will come up to you and say, you know, I always thought we were alone. That we were alone out there. And nobody cared, and nobody shared, and nobody understood what we're going through. And now I've come here, this is my first year at Key Campaign, and I realize I'm not alone. If you haven't been truly devalued in your life, if you haven't been removed from community, for example, been institutionalized, I'm not sure we can even say, well, I think I know how you feel. I don't think we know how people feel that have had power torn from them from the very beginnings of life, families and people who experience disabilities, and then all of a sudden one day they're up in front of a legislative hearing talking to their legislator, senator, representative, talking to the governor, whomever, and the comments, as you said, that people come away like, wow, I really did that. And I can do that. It's almost a sense, I don't want to say returning of power, because I think there's people that never had that sense of power. What happens at Key, but the power, all the people come together in Juneau, then maybe a few of us will spin off and negotiate things, but it's only because everybody was there. And the administration and legislature sees numbers, and they hear the stories, and they look at statistics, and how statistics have faces on them. Sometimes it's harder to ignore it that way. But anyhow, the people give whoever follows the Key Campaign the power to go and try to accomplish things that they've set the stage for by their massive numbers, by their stories, by their testimony, etc. 3 different legislators who I would say were not our friends. And unity dinners where we invite them, and once in a while you drag them in. I saw one who will remain nameless sit down at a table next to a beautiful gal sitting in a wheelchair, was nonverbal, and I believe that night he fell in love with this little gal who never said a word verbally, but sat by him, smiled at him. Actually, he was hugged her, took a picture with her. Next thing we know, he's a friend. That's powerful advocacy with having.
Was the time when really community-based services were the wave of the future, and institutions were closing. And in fact, in our own state, we were looking at the state institution in Harborview and Valdez, and looking at the potential for if we could close that in the future. We also saw that as a potential resource for funds for community-based services, because at the time, our cost of care was about $25,000 per person per year to live in a 4-person group home, for example, versus living at Harborview was approximately $125,000 per person. And some of those individuals were no more severely disabled than anybody who was living in a community. So it really at that time was a choice of, do you want to live in the community? Do you trust that your child will be safe in the community, or do you want your child in a secured facility? And so that there was a real dilemma going on at the time about the culture of services, the culture of how we choose to serve and live with people who experience disabilities in our society. It started because it was truly a time, I think, when families and individuals who experienced disabilities and providers realized we needed each other. And maybe 5 or 6 years into the Key Campaign, I remember a man showing up, and he had his child in his arms who had Down syndrome. She was just beautiful little girl. And he said, where do I report? I'm showing up for the Key campaign. And I had realized that the network, you know, the word of mouth had really sent the message statewide that it was important to be there.
There was a gathering at the Arc of Anchorage, and it was a candidate forum, and all the candidates for the legislature were there together to answer questions about disability issues. And the theme of the evening was that the key to independent living is supportive services. And so from my marketing background, I suggested that they adopt the key as the symbol for something called a Key campaign, to come down to Juneau and lobby for better services and an end to the wait list for people with disabilities who needed services. And at that evening, I said that if I were elected to the State House, every year I would make a speech in favor of these services, and that if people would send me their keys, their old keys from their junk drawer or off of their key ring, and would send those to me in Juneau, I would keep them in a big jug on my desk. And Senator Betty Davis and I have that jug of keys on our desk. And for 3 or 4 years, people sent old keys, discarded keys, through the mail to legislators, and they brought them to us, and we put them in the big tub of keys. And so every year, and this year for the 20th time, I made a speech in support of the Key campaign. For 20 years, people have been coming down here to advocate for these services, and we'll keep on until all the wait list is gone.
Advocates were told that they would never make a difference, that they, as with so many other groups, would just disappear, vanish in 3 to 5 years. 2 decades later, they are still here in Juneau.
Key for me simply means that there is people throughout the state of Alaska that is willing to put themselves on the line, show the state that people with special needs or challenges, whichever you prefer, want to make a difference and can make a difference in their community. And that once we're given that chance to be allowed to make that difference, they will not ever regret it. We are some of the strongest working forces of people out there. We just need to be given the chance to be allowed to prove that. Key puts that in the forefront of the state government and everyone's mind that meets anybody for the Key campaign.
Is that I am interested in seeing the waiting list go down to 0. I feel that we should have had it down to 0 2,300 years ago before it even exist.
Just
Pain is when I started in 1988 when they first started and everything. And for me, the impression for me was speaking up for myself and learn how to do the legislation and learn how to work on the programs and everything and understand much better. That's what Key campaign means to me and everything. It's something that's warm and fuzzy if you get used to it by now.
It's warm and fuzzy? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's nice to be around people who I've known for quite a long time. Even when I was first with the ARC and everything.
So Key gives me a chance to get out on the street, get out in the Capitol building, meet the policymakers, and help influence what they do. And it is so inspiring because I'm with all advocates that are just living the world of disabilities every day, and it is completely energizing to me.
Hi, we're with the Key Coalition. This is our 20th year of coming down to Juneau and standing on the steps where the people that you see here are the SWAT team.
Waiting list. And then I've also had talked to him about transportation.
To me, the spirit of the Key campaign is really about community, unity, and advocacy. That's what
brings back into focus what this is all about. Getting to see all these people that I've known over the years and meeting these news people and coming and helping the legislator understand what we're all about.
Alaska, the last frontier. These are the voyages of the Key campaign. Our continuing mission to explore a new world, to seek out services for all communities, to boldly go where no one has gone before.
Hi. We're about to leave the Key campaign, and this is my first time. And it's been a full 2 days, and I feel really blessed to have been here. One of the big reasons that I noticed right away on the airplane even is it's the first place I've been where I hear people talking so casually about disabilities and diagnoses. You know, the person sitting next to me on the plane's first question after hi pretty much was, you know, what's his disability? Instead of like, what do you do for work?
Right.
And that's been really refreshing for me, especially being from sort of a community of people where he's the only one with special needs, and often people don't know how to talk about it or don't know what to say. So that's been wonderful, and just how warm and supportive everyone is, and how, you know, everyone has different needs, but they're all interconnected. You know,
they are,
which is what makes us the community.
Yes.
And because you are here for 20 years, whether the faces are the same or the faces change, there is a power and there is a spirit that will never go away.